For RCR TV, I'm Sean Kinney, and welcome to HetNet Happenings, where we take a look at all things DAS, Wi-Fi, small cell, and much more.
CommScope, thinking beyond today's technology to help you make the best decision for your network and your business. Telecom Careers, the #1 global telecom and wireless job board, telecomcareers.com.
Welcome back to HetNet Happenings. We've got a great show for you today. On this program, we're going to talk a lot about true heterogeneous networks of the future, which will have features like full integration of different network technologies, all resulting in a seamless user experience. But there's another aspect of using that connectivity to create smart cities, and I really like this topic because we think so much about the consumer focus of this technology, but smart cities are a great example of using the same technology to push widespread quality of life changes for lots of people. We're going to talk later in the show with Mike Zito, who's the General Manager of Smart Cities for AT&T's IoT Solutions Group. But first, I wanted to take a look at some recent headlines. On the Internet of Things front, Cisco CEO Chuck Robbins made comments this week at the company's Media Day that emphasized the software side of IoT rather than the hardware side, which is a little interesting for a company best known for its equipment. Robbins discussed the importance of data analytics services, security, and flexibility as it relates to IoT deployments. More IoT news from another big player in the tech industry. Amazon is reportedly set to announce a cloud-based service for the Internet of Things. Now, this is from Amazon Web Services, and reports suggest the new service will be similar to offerings from Microsoft and IBM, which are geared toward developers integrating new devices with existing platforms. Switching gears to some carrier news, T-Mobile US is set to be joined in the free streaming music space by Sprint prepaid band Virgin Mobile USA, which announced that beginning October 9th, it will support free streaming of music from select online content providers. Service will be made available to Virgin Mobile customers on rate plans that include cellular data access, which begin at $35 a month. The streaming music service will not detract from a customer's allotted data bucket. Virgin Mobile said customers will need to be connected to the Sprint-provided 3G or 4G network to access the service, and that the service does not include premium subscriptions to the content providers. This one's kind of interesting because FCC Commissioner Ajit Pai has made it clear in recent weeks that he thinks services like this violate net neutrality rules because it gives preference, albeit at no cost, to one type of content over another, in this case music. Another interesting Sprint story, we heard from VP Wayne Ward last week at the TC3 show out in Silicon Valley that Sprint's considering how to use rare speakers. Wayne told us you could see something similar from Sprint in the near future at some of their retail locations. Now I'd like to introduce our guest, Mike Zito, who is AT&T's General Manager of Smart Cities. Mike, thanks a lot for joining us on HetNet Happenings.
For having me. Appreciate it.
So Mike, as we get started, can you give us an overview of AT&T's Smart Cities initiatives? I know the program's contained in the IoT group, but if you could get a little more specific about IoT as it relates directly to smart cities.
Exciting time for AT&T. We've had a lot of success over the years in the Internet of Things area of our business. We are the leader in the U.S. and some would say globally regarding Internet of Things technology solution provider for telecommunications, and a natural progression of that is to move into vertical areas that use underlying Internet of Things technologies and communication solutions like smart cities. So we have recently formed a dedicated organization under me that sits within our Internet of Things business unit to go out and really focus on helping cities develop out a framework and solutions that are driving Internet of Things and smart cities related applications that can help them solve problems both for the city and for the citizens. So we've got a really strong group of ecosystem partners that we've brought together. And as you may know, smart cities and Internet of Things, there's a lot of partners that need to come together to really create successful solutions. AT&T is one of them, and we feel like we have the ability to lead large alliances and partner ecosystems, to drive really positive results for cities, because we've got long-standing relationships with some of these cities, 50, 60, 70 years, where they've really been depending on us to be one of their technology providers of choice. And then we also have very deep relationships with many of the citizens or the city's customers that actually reside in those areas. So we feel like it's a great time for us to step up and lead and do some great things with some really large partners and some small partners as well, to help drive a lot of value for cities and for its constituents.
So Mike, really a smart city is a bit of an ambiguous term. It can refer to lots of different use cases. So from AT&T's perspective, what is a smart city, and what are some of the markers of a smart city?
If you think of some of so you're right, 100%, right? I mean, the definition of smart cities is really broad, and just at a high level, if you want to define what it is, it's really it's using sensors, digital technology, and then a communications platform to connect people, processes, and assets, to drive efficiencies, to drive sustainability, to reduce operational cost, and then develop a better living experience for its citizens. And that's, one of the things that you hit on as a use case. That's an example of a company that can provide a solution to a city to drive a better living experience for its citizens. So, if you think about some other use case examples inside of solution domains that cities will look at, I think you'll have, if you think about utilities as a solution domain, you'll have smart lighting. We'll also have smart water or leak detection systems and opportunities that help to determine leaks prior to burst. So that will help reduce non-revenue water loss. You'll have, smart grid and electric, and that's something that we've already done. AT&T has had a smart grid team that's actually been moved under me. So we've been in the smart city space for some time with specific use case solutions like smart grid. And then, if you move from utilities and you slide over to ways to leverage technology and communications platforms to drive efficiencies around transportation. And that would be everything from traffic management to parking. And then you can slide into those more citizen engagement type or citizen-friendly use cases like air quality sensors that you mentioned that could be installed at the time of doing a retrofit for LED lighting or a smart lighting solution. So, there's ways to maximize efficiencies through a building block approach to implementation as well, where when you go and do one touch to install intelligent lighting, you also install sensors that can provide air quality information, cameras that can provide security information, other sensors like gunshot audio detection that could provide information around a gunshot and triangulation to send an alert to the police department to roll a unit. And then also traffic sensors when you do that install. So what we're trying to really do is take some very specific solutions that solve problems, like I mentioned, and then create a framework of partners that have different components of these solutions, and then lead the group by going out to some spotlight cities to start to be able to implement these solutions and then drive some key learnings, not only for the organizations that are participating in this alliance, let's call it, but also for the cities so that they can go back to their citizens and say, hey, this does work. This is where how it will provide a positive impact to you and to your family and to the city overall. So that's really part of the goal as we get specific into the use cases and start to deploy them into the market, for testing and to develop some key learnings.
Mike, right now we're going through this huge period of urbanization around the world. To lend a little bit of context to that, The UN says that right now, 54% of the population lives in cities. That's up from 30% in 1950. But by 2050, the UN projects that 66% of all people will live in cities or urban centers. Can you help me understand how that trend fits into smart cities? It almost seems like cities are going to have to build in intelligence just to manage the sheer volume when you think about things like traffic management.
That's a good question, right? And that's a fair question. Technology is an enabler, as we all know, and can sometimes be a crutch. But I think there's a very strategic approach that's going to need to be taken, and a lot of support, from the government and from the cities themselves to help drive the adoption, so you can realize these benefits. Densification and urbanization, more people moving into these urban areas from the suburbs, it's going to happen over time. All the data points to that. And so, we need to, as a global community, start to embrace that, and political leadership needs to get behind that as well, because, one of the questions out there is still, how do you pay for all this, right? How do you pay for the technology to enable these solutions to drive the benefits when this densification occurs? And I think the EU has done a good job starting to fund some initiatives over there. I think you saw last week in DC where the government, the United States government, made some announcements at the White House, which we were fortunate enough to be there for those. As a lead member of NIST and of some of the other standards groups and organizations that have been stood up. I think that $160 million will help to fund and seed some of the growth, so that the technology providers can test and then start to quantify, what the actual benefits are going to be, so that we can then get those projects funded. But it's going to happen. It's just going to take time. I mean, we're at the beginning of a journey, okay? And I think that is something that everybody needs to keep in mind. Many of the cities have started already, large and small. The research universities are leading this in some cases, which are great. But we truly are at the beginning of a journey that's going to take a unique framework and a building block approach to really roll things out and get them to scale. And that's where we feel like we can take a leadership position based on the experience that we have starting and leading industries through technology progressions.
And Mike, I also wanted to hear from you about security, which becomes an increasingly prevalent issue as we become increasingly connected. So obviously, the more things we connect, the more risk for security incursion there is. So what's AT&T do with consideration of security when it's developing smart city services? And I'm particularly thinking about mission-critical functions like power grid or public safety applications.
I think that a unique differentiator, when people look at AT&T, they look at us as their cell phone service provider or their landline or UVerse, right? They don't really understand everything that we do as a company, and then the adjacencies that we have in our business, where we put a lot of focus and invest a ton of money. Frankly, we're doing a lot of that investment around security. We feel and we know based on testing and our position in the market that we have the most secure, scalable network that's out there today. And our focus is about security. And there's different layers of security when you think about of IoT, right? You've got the device layer security. You've got the network layer, which is where we're sitting. So we're securing the data from the sensor, back to the cloud, and in some cases even using some of our cloud solutions that we have to secure data until it's passed on to whatever visualization tool that's being used to make sense of that data. So we have a lot of focus around security and threat analysis, and that's really an area where AT&T steps up, I think. And one of the reasons that we're very well positioned to actually lead some of this thought leadership and some of this market scale, because we've got that critical network component that is the thread that's actually weaved through each and every single smart city solution, and we make sure that layer is extremely, extremely secure.
All right, Mike. Well, we really appreciate you taking a few minutes to tell us about what AT&T is doing in the smart city space. And that's a topic we regularly cover here at RCR, so I'd encourage you to check out our website, rcrwireless.com, to stay up to date. You can even sign up for our daily newsletter to have all the telecom and ICT headlines delivered straight to your inbox every day. For multimedia content, including past episodes of this show, as well as lots of content from TC3, like I mentioned earlier, you can check out the RCR TV website or the RCR Wireless News YouTube channel. I'm Sean Kinney, and we'll see you back here next week for another episode of HetNet Happenings.
HetNet Happenings is a production of RCR TV. To reach Sean Kinney or to suggest a show topic for HetNet Happenings, you can reach Sean at skinney@rcrwireless.com, on Twitter at SeanKinneyRCR. To find out more about the latest in HetNet and all things wireless, dig into rcrwireless.com.